The message came at exactly midnight. Earth Standard Time, every screen on. Every human world flickered and went dark for 3 seconds, then the face appeared. Kuraro's then was 9 ft tall. His skin the color of polished bronze. His eyes burning with the cold light of a species that had ruled the stars for 10,000 years. The Valkyrie had conquered 100 worlds before humans learned to make fire. They had built the Galactic Council from the ashes of ancient wars. They had kept peace through strength for longer than human civilization had existed. Now this ancient being looked into every human home, every ship, every colony, and spoke words that would chain everything. People of Earth, Kuraro's then said, his voice deep and slow like grinding stone. The Galactic Council has watched your expansion with growing concern. In the last 50 years you have claimed 37 worlds. You have built warships when we advised peace. You have pushed into territories we declared forbidden. This cannot continue. In homes across Earth, families stopped eating dinner. On colony worlds, workers paused and looked up at public screens. On military vessels, officers gathered in silence. You have 72 hours, Kuraro's then continued. You will surrender all colonies established since the Treaty of First Contact. You will dismantle your military fleet. You will accept permanent observer status in the Council with no voting rights. If you refuse, we will come. 300 warships of the combined Council fleet are positioned at the edge of your solar system. Resistance will mean extinction. The screen went dark again, then normal broadcasts resumed. But no one was watching them anymore. Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the Earth defense vessel Defiance and felt the weight of the message settle over her crew. She was 43 years old, her black hair cut short in military fashion, her brown eyes calm, a face that had seen too many battles. She had commanded the Defiance for 8 years, fought in 3 border conflicts, lost friends and saved strangers. She had never felt fear quite like this. Captain, her first officer said. Lieutenant Commander James Chen was young for his rank, brilliant and nervous. What do we do? Elena did not answer immediately. She walked to the main viewport and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, 300 alien warships waited to destroy everything she loved. The mathematics were simple. Earth had 90 combat vessels. The Council had 300, each one larger and more powerful than anything humans had built. Get me a secure channel to Earth. Command, she said finally, and then get me a channel to the Council flagship. Chen's eyes widened. The Council flagship, Captain, that's an order, Lieutenant Commander. The crew worked in tense silence. Elena watched them and felt proud. These were good people. They deserved better than extinction. Earth command on secure channel. Captain, the communications officer reported. Elena moved to her command chair and activated the screen. Admiral Sarah Morrison appeared. Her gray hair pulled back tight, her face drawn with exhaustion. Behind her, Elena could see the chaos of the command center, officers running back and forth with reports. Vasquez, the admiral, said, "Good, you're the closest vessel to the Council fleet. What's your status?" "Fully operational, Admiral. Ready for orders." Morrison's eyes softened slightly. She and Elena had served together 20 years ago before rank and responsibility had separated them. "Elena, I need you to understand something. The government is in emergency session. Some are arguing for surrender. They're saying we can't win this fight. They're probably right, Alina said. We can't win in any traditional sense. Then what do you suggest? Alina took a breath. I suggest we change what winning means. Before Morrison could respond, Chen interrupted. Captain, I have the council. Flagship, Supreme Arbiter Kororos then is willing to speak with you. Morrison shook her head. Alina, don't do anything. Trust me, Admiral. Alina cut the connection and turned to face the main screen. Kororos then appeared again, this time seated on a throne of black metal aboard his ship. His bronze face showed no expression, but his burning eyes studied Alina with something like curiosity. You are Captain Alina Vasquez, he said, commander of the human vessel Defiance. We have records of you. You fought the Sinandari patrol fleet for years ago. You went against superior numbers through tactics we did not anticipate. I'm honored you remember, Alina said. Her voice was steady, her hands relaxed at her sides. Why have you requested this communication? Do you wish to negotiate surrender terms? Alina smiled. It was not a happy smile. No, Supreme Arbiter. I wanted to deliver a message directly so there would be no confusion. Caroso then leaned forward slightly around him. Other council species watched from their stations, the Sinandari with their silver skin and calculating eyes, the crystalline forms of the hollow ancient machine that had achieved consciousness millennia ago, the flowing water shapes of the Mirren contained in mobile tanks. Speak your message, Kororos then said. Earth will not surrender, Alina said. Not our colonies, not our fleet, not our freedom. You can bring your 300 ships. You can bring 3,000. We will not kneel. A murmur passed through the council bridge. Kororos then raised one massive clear's throat, hand in silence. Returned, Captain Vasquez, you must understand what you are saying. Your species has existed for barely 200,000 years. The Velry have ruled these stars. For 10,000 years, we have destroyed civilizations more advanced than yours. We have crushed rebellions that made your entire military look like children playing with toys. What you are suggesting is suicide. No, Alina said. What I am suggesting is war. She stepped closer to the screen and her eyes met the burning gaze of the Supreme Arbiter. You have not fought a real war in 400,000 years, she said. Your ships are powerful, but your tactics are ceremonies. Your commanders have won 1,000 battles, but always against enemies who already knew they were beaten. You have never faced a species like us, and what makes humans so different? Kororos then asked. There was genuine curiosity in his voice now. We never stop, Alina said. We never accept defeat. We have fought each other for our entire existence. We have turned war into an art form. We know things about killing that would give your strategists nightmares, and here is the truth you need to understand, Supreme Arbiter. We will not simply fight your fleet, we will attack it. The council bridge went silent. Even the Hollow, who had not shown emotion in centuries, seemed to still. You will attack. Caroso then repeated slowly. With 90 ships against 300, with however many ships we have, with whatever weapons we can build, and if you destroy our fleet, we will attack with civilian transports loaded with nuclear weapons, and if you destroy those, we will attack with escape pods and suicide pilots, and if you kill every human in space, the ones On Earth we'll build new ships and come. For you we will never stop, we will never surrender, we will attack until one of us is extinct. Alina's voice had not risen. She spoke these terrible words as calmly as if she were reading a weather report. That calm was more frightening than any amount of screaming would have been. You are insane. Ka rose, then said, no. Alina replied, we are human, and you have made a terrible mistake. Supreme Arbiter, you have given us nothing to lose. She reached for the control to end the transmission, then paused. You have 72 hours, she said. Use them to reconsider or don't. Either way, we are coming for you. The screen went dark on the Council flagship. Silence stretched for a long moment. Then one of the Sundari officers spoke. Supreme Arbiter, surely this is a bluff. No sane species would. The humans are not insane. The hollow representative interrupted, its crystalline voice chiming through the bridge. We have studied them extensively. They are entirely rational. They simply have a different relationship with death than most species. They embrace it. They romanticize it. They have a saying, give me liberty or give me death. They mean it literally. Ka rose, then stood slowly, his ancient joints creaking. He walked to the viewport and looked out at the distant yellow star that was Sol. Then we will give them death, he said. Ready the fleet. In 72 hours we end the human question forever. But in his mind, behind his burning eyes, a small seed of doubt had been planted. He had destroyed 100 species. He had never seen one that promised to attack. While staring at certain destruction, he had never seen eyes like Elelina Vasquez's eyes on a defiance. Elelina sat alone in her quarters. Her hands were shaking now with no one to see. She poured herself a drink and swallowed it in one motion. She had just condemned her species to war with an enemy they could not defeat. She had spoken brave words about never surrendering, about attacking until extinction, but words would not stop those 300 ships. She needed a plan, a real plan, not just brave speeches. She needed to find a way to hurt the Council so badly that they would choose to negotiate rather than continue fighting. She needed to make the cost of victory higher than they were willing to pay. Elena pulled up files on her screen. Council fleet compositions, historical battle records, analysis of alien psychology that humanity had been secretly compiling for decades, intelligence reports from spies and sympathizers within the Council structure. The Council had not fought a real war in for 1,000 years. Ellen arrived at Earth 12 hours after her transmission to the Council. The Defiance docked at the orbital station above Geneva, and she was immediately escorted to the underground bunker where the United Earth Defense Council had been meeting continuously since the ultimatum. The bunker was chaos. Politicians argued in clusters, their voices rising and falling in waves of fear and anger. Military officers huddled over tactical displays that showed the same hopeless numbers over and over again. 300 against 90, 10,000 years of warfare experience against 2 centuries of space travel. Admiral Morrison met Elena at the door. The older woman's face was gray with exhaustion, but her eyes still held the steel that had made her the most respected officer in the fleet. You've caused quite a storm, Morrison said quietly. Half the Council thinks you're a hero, the other half thinks you've doomed us all. Which half are you in? Elena asked. Morrison almost smiled. I'm in the half that wants to hear your plan before I decide. They walked together through the crowded bunker to a small conference room at the back. Inside, a handful of officers waited. Elena recognized them all. These were the unconventional thinkers, the ones who had studied alien psychology and written papers on asymmetric warfare. These were the ones Morrison had chosen to hear Elena's impossible plan. Sit, Morrison said. Talk. We have 60 hours left. Elena remained standing. She activated the room's holographic display and brought up an image of the Council fleet. 300 ships, she said, each one carrying between 500 and 2,000 crew members. Total enemy force, approximately 400,000. Beings from 12 different species. Combined firepower capable of destroying every human installation from Mars to the outer colonies in approximately 6 hours. The officers shifted uncomfortably. These numbers were not new, but hearing them spoken aloud made them somehow more real. Now forget all of that. Elena said that she changed the display. Now it showed something different. Historical records, battle reports from 4,000 years of Council peacekeeping operations. The Council has not fought a real war since the Harmony Crusade. In that conflict they lost approximately 12,000 soldiers over a period of 30 years. Since then they have engaged in what they call enforcement actions, quick strikes against primitive species, overwhelming force against enemies who cannot fight back. The largest battle they have fought in the last millennium resulted in the loss of 3 ships. She paused to let that sink in. 3 ships. That was considered a disaster. There were investigations. Commanders were removed from duty. The Council species have become so accustomed to victory that they have forgotten how to handle loss. Captain Marcus Rodriguez, commander of the vessel Thunder Strike, leaned forward. Are you suggesting we can win by making them lose more ships than they're comfortable with? Not quite, Elena said. I'm suggesting we can win by showing them what war actually costs. They think this will be quick and easy. A few weeks of fighting, then humans surrender or extinction. We need to show them that conquering humanity will take years, decades, that it will cost them thousands of ships and millions of lives, that even if they win, they will be so weakened that other species will see opportunities. And how do we do that? Morrison asked. We can't actually destroy thousands of ships. Elena changed the display again. Now it showed the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. We don't fight them in open space. We fight them here in the belt, where their numbers mean less and their formation tactics are useless. She zoomed in on the display, showing the countless rocks and debris fields that fill the belt. We've been mapping these asteroids for 50 years. We know every rock larger than a house. We know the gravity patterns, the drift speeds, the hidden spaces between clusters. The Council knows none of this. To them, the belt is just an obstacle to fly around. You want to ambush them, Rodriguez said slowly. Draw them into the belt and hit them from hiding. More than that, Elena said. I want to show them something they've never seen before. I want to show them humans fighting the way we fought each other for thousands of years. Dirty, unpredictable, willing to sacrifice everything. She brought up tactical diagrams she had been working on since leaving the Council flagship. We hide ships inside hollowed asteroids. We position others behind moons with their engines cold. We scatter decoys and fake signals throughout the belt. When the Council fleet enters, thinking they're chasing our main force, we hit them from every direction at once. They'll adapt, Morrison said. After the initial surprise, they'll regroup and crush us. Yes, Elena agreed, so we don't let them regroup. We hit them and run, then we hit them again from a different direction. Then again we never give them a clean target. We never let them use their superior firepower properly. We make them chase us through the rocks until they're frustrated and angry and making mistakes. Admiral Morrison studied the display for a long moment. How many ships do you need? 300. The room went silent. Elena's words hung in the air like a death sentence. We have 90 combat vessels, Morrison said. Carefully, I know. That's why I'm asking for volunteers from the civilian fleet. Transport ships, mining vessels, anything that can fly and carry a weapon. We won't use them in direct combat. They'll be decoys, distractions, harassment units. They'll make the Council think we have far more combat strength than we actually do. Captain Sarah Kim, who had been quiet until now, shook her head. You're asking civilians to fly into a battle they can't survive. I'm asking for volunteers, Elena said. People who understand what we're facing and choose to fight anyway. And I should tell you now that many of them will die. Many of us will die. This plan doesn't guarantee victory. It guarantees that winning will cost the Council more than they expect, maybe more than they're willing to pay. And if they are willing to pay it, Rodriguez asked, if they accept the losses and keep coming. Elena met his eyes. Then we've bought Earth time to evacuate civilians, time to hide our children on distant worlds the Council doesn't know about, time to plant seeds of humanity so deep in the galaxy that the Council can never find them all. She looked around the room at these officers, these warriors, these frightened, brave people who had signed up to defend humanity and never imagined facing something like this. We are probably going to lose this war, she said quietly. I won't lie to you about that. The Council is too strong, too old, too experienced, but losing doesn't mean extinction. Not if we make them bleed for every inch of space. Not if we show the galaxy that humans don't go quietly. Other species are watching. Some of them are already unhappy with Council rule. If we fight hard enough, if we prove that the Council can be hurt, we might inspire rebellions that outlast us. We might plant ideas that grow into revolutions 100 years from now. She straightened her shoulders. But first we fight not to win, to make winning so expensive that our enemies learn to respect us, and maybe, just maybe, to convince them that negotiation is cheaper than conquest. Admiral Morrison stood slowly. She looked old in that moment, older than her years, carrying the weight of a decision that would determine the fate of billions. You'll have your volunteers, she said. I'll make the announcement myself. Anyone who wants to fight will find them. A ship and a weapon. Thank you, Admiral. Don't thank me yet. Morrison's voice was heavy. You've just asked me to send thousands of people to their deaths on the chance that we might make our enemies uncomfortable. Yes, Elena said. That's exactly what I've asked. She turned back to the display and began outlining specific tactical details. Hiding spots, attack vectors, communication protocols, retreat routes. The other officers gathered closer, asking questions, offering suggestions, adding their own expertise to the Impossible plan. Outside the conference room, the chaos continued. Politicians still argued, some still pushed for surrender, but word began to spread. Through the bunker, and then through the orbital stations, and then through every human world, Captain Vasquez had a plan. It was desperate and probably suicidal, but it was better than giving up. Volunteer registrations began flooding. Within hours, ship captains, fighter pilots, engineers who knew how to turn mining lasers into weapons, scientists who could calculate asteroid trajectories down to the centimeter, teachers and farmers and factory workers who had never held a gun but refused to watch their species surrender. By the time 48 hours had passed, Elena had her 300 ships. Some were sleek military vessels designed for combat. Others were battered freighters, held together with tape and prayer. All of them carried crews who had looked at certain death and said yes anyway. Elena stood on the bridge of the Defiance as her fleet gathered at the edge of the asteroid belt. On her screens she could see the Council Armada beginning to move, 300 warships of polished metal and ancient design, each one a monument to 10,000 years of galactic dominance. They were beautiful in their way, beautiful and terrible, and absolutely confident in their coming victory. Elena opened a channel to her fleet. This is Captain Vasquez. In a few hours we're going to fight a battle we probably can't win. Some of you are professional soldiers, some of you have never been in combat before. It doesn't matter today, you're all warriors. She paused, looking out at the stars. Council thinks we're Prim Council fleet. Entered the asteroid belt in perfect formation, 300 ships arranged in the traditional V3 attack pattern, a design that had conquered civilizations for millennia. At the center, the command ship Eternal Judgment carried supreme Arbiter Cororone and representatives from all 12 console species, Co-OS-. Then watched the tactical display with ancient eyes. The belt was dense with rocks and debris, but his navigators had plotted safe corridors through the chaos. His sensors showed the human fleet scattered ahead, their ships separated and vulnerable. They run. Observed Ambassador Sundaricus, the silver-kinned representative of the merchant species. As we expected, their brave words were nothing but noise. Perhaps Koros then said slowly. Something bothered him about the human positions. They seemed random, disorganized, but the human captain he had spoken to had not seemed like someone who would panic. Increase sensor range. I want to see everything in this belt. Supreme Orbiter, the sensor officer reported, we are detecting human ships ahead, approximately 40 vessels. They appear to be civilian transports and mining craft. No military threat in their warships scattered. We are tracking 15 military vessels, all retreating toward the inner system. 15 ships running, the rest nowhere to be seen. Kararos then felt the doubt growing stronger. Stop the fleet. Ambassador Syndaricus looked up sharply. Supreme Arbiter, something is wrong. The humans are not running in fear. They're moving with purpose. Kararos then studied the display again. Where are their other ships? They had 90 military vessels hidden, perhaps. Hollow representative suggested its crystalline voice chiming through the bridge. This belt offers many concealment options. Our sensors are limited by the mineral composition of these asteroids. Then they are planning an ambush. Kararos then smiled coldly. Primitive tactics, send the forward. Squadrons to flush them out, keep the main fleet in reserve, 50 council ships. Broke formation and accelerated into the belt. They were the finest warriors of the Sinandari and Thornwood fleets. Crews who had served the council for generations, they spread out in a search pattern, sensors probing every shadow. They found nothing. For 2 hours they searched. The human ships they had been tracking disappeared behind asteroids and didn't emerge, signals that seemed like vessels turned out to be decoys. The council squadrons grew frustrated, their perfect formations breaking up as individual captains pursued phantom targets. Supreme Orbiter the forward squadron commander reported, "We have found nothing. The humans are not here. Their signals must have been false." Kararos then opened his mouth to respond. At that exact moment the first council ship exploded. It was a Sindari cruiser 800 m long, carrying 400 crew. One moment it was scanning an asteroid cluster. The next moment, a human frigate emerged from inside a hollowed-out rock less than 50 meters away and fired every weapon it had. Clear's throat directly into the cruiser's unshielded engine section. The explosion lit up the belt like a new star before the council ships could react. More humans appeared. They came from everywhere, from inside asteroids, from behind tumbling rocks, from debris fields where they had been drifting with engines cold for hours. 20 human ships materialized in the space of 30 seconds, each one positioned perfectly to strike at a council vessel's weakest point. All ships' defensive formation. Kararos then commanded, but defensive formations required open space and clear lines of fire. In the asteroid belt, surrounded by chaos, the council ships couldn't form up without exposing themselves to the rocks that had concealed their enemies. They began maneuvering individually, each captain making their own decisions. The humans had anticipated this. Captain Ellen of Vasquez watched from the Defiance as her plan unfolded. The council ships were powerful. Yes, their weapons could destroy human vessels with single shots, but they were designed for formation warfare, for coordinated volleys against enemies who fought the same way. They had never faced an enemy that didn't follow the rules. Squadron 2 hit their supply ships. Elelina ordered Squadron 3, take out their communication relays. Squadron 1 with me. The Defiance led a group of 7 ships directly toward the Eternal Judgment. They weren't trying to destroy the command ship. That was impossible. They were trying to force it to respond, to make decisions, to become part of the chaos instead of observing it from safety. Kararos then saw them coming. All batteries fire on those vessels. The Eternal Judgment's weapons came alive. Beams of energy lanced through space, powerful enough to vaporize asteroids. 2 human ships disappeared in flashes of light. A third lost engines and began spinning helplessly, but the others kept coming. Ella felt the Defiance shudder as enemy fire grazed their shields. Alarms screamed across the bridge hall. Breaches on 3 decks. Engine power failing. Keep going, she ordered. Get me closer, Captain. We can't survive another hit like that. I know, get me closer anyway. The Defiance pushed forward, weaving between asteroids, using the rocks as shields whenever possible. Behind Elelina, her crew worked frantically to keep the ship flying. Some of them were crying. None of them stopped working. At 200 m from the Eternal Judgment, Ililina. Fired everything, missiles, energy, beams, even the ship's emergency flares. Designed for rescue operations, launched directly at the command ship's bridge. None of it was enough to seriously damage the massive vessel, but it forced Caruso then to react. It forced him to focus on one tiny ship instead of commanding the battle, and while he was focused on the Defiance, the rest of Alina's fleet was destroying his squadrons. The battle lasted 3 hours. When it was over, the asteroid belt was filled with wreckage, broken ships drifted among the rocks, their crews dead or dying. Emergency beacons flashed uselessly in the dark. The Council had lost 43 ships, 43 ships in a single battle, more than they had lost in the last 400 years combined. The survivors retreated in disorder, no longer fleet but a collection of damaged vessels trying to escape the humans who had somehow turned the belt into a killing ground. Alina sat in her command chair and tried to breathe. The Defiance was barely functional. Half her crew was dead or wounded. She had lost 93 ships, 4,000 human soldiers, volunteers, civilians who had never asked to be warriors, but they had won. No, not won. They had survived. They had made the Council bleed. That was different from winning, but it was more than anyone had expected. Open a channel to the Council flagship, she said. Her voice was raw from shouting orders over the noise of battle. Coruscant's face appeared on her screen. For the first time she saw uncertainty in those burning eyes. Behind him, his bridge was damaged, filled with smoke and the sounds of emergency repairs. That was a warning. Alina said, the next battle will be worse, and the one after that, and every battle until you decide that peace is cheaper than war. She cut the transmission before he could respond. On the eternal judgment, Coraros then stood amid the wreckage of his confidence. Around him, the representatives of the Council species argued and accused and demanded explanations. The Sindari wanted to retreat and reconsider. The Thornwood wanted reinforcements. The Hollow were calculating losses and projecting future casualties with their cold machine logic. They are insects. The Velry Admiral Kororo Vex snarled. He was young for his species, barely 2,000 years old, and his pride was wounded. Worse than his ship, we crushed them with overwhelming force. Bring the full fleet, burn their planets. We brought the full fleet, Caros then said quietly, and we lost 43 ships to 90. They surprised us. It won't happen again, won't it? Caruso then looked at the tactical display, now updated with the aftermath of the battle. They knew exactly where our ships would be. They knew our formations, our tactics, our weaknesses. They had been preparing for this battle for years, maybe decades. And we walked into their trap like children. He turned to face the Council representatives. The humans are not insects, they are predators, and we have made the mistake of cornering them. Then what do we do? Ambassador Sinandaras asked. The merchant species were already calculating the economic cost of a prolonged war. The numbers were not pleasant. Kororo then was silent for a long moment. 10,000 years of V3 rule, 100 conquered civilizations, the certainty that the Council was invincible, that no species could challenge their dominance, all of it shattered by a human woman with 43 ships and the willingness to sacrifice everything. We regroup, he said. Finally, we bring reinforcements. We plan more carefully. He paused, and we Send a message to Earth, tell them we are willing to discuss terms, surrender. Admiral Kororo's Vex was outraged. Negotiation, Kororo's then corrected. There is a difference, the humans have proven they can hurt us, now we see if they are wise enough to accept peace. When it is offered, if not, he looked out at the debris field that had been his forward squadrons, if not we destroy them completely, but we give them the choice. As the Council fleet limped away from the news of the Battle of the Belt spread through the galaxy faster than any official announcement could travel. Within hours, every species in the Council knew what had happened. Within days, the story had reached the edges of known space. The mighty Galactic Council had attacked a primitive species called humans, and they had not lost the war, not even lost a significant portion of their fleet, but they had lost more ships in one battle than they had lost in centuries. They had been surprised, outmaneuvered, and humiliated by creatures who had only been traveling between stars for 200 years. Political effects were immediate and devastating on the Mirren home world, a water planet called Depth Eternal. Elder councils met in secret. The Mirren had been council members for 8,000 years, but they had never been respected. Their aquatic nature made them strange to the land-dwelling species that dominated galactic politics. The Valkyrie barely tolerated them. The Sinandari cheated them in trade agreements, but humans had never looked at them with contempt. Human scientists had called them beautiful. Human diplomats had treated them as equals. Human artists had created works inspired by their flowing forms. Now the humans were fighting for survival against the same powers that had marginalized the Mirren for millennia. We should help them, said Elder Flowing Dawn, the oldest of the Mirreni Council. The humans have shown that the Council can be challenged. If they fall, we lose our best hope of ever being truly free. If we help them openly, the Council will destroy us, too, warned another elder. Then we help them secretly. Intelligence, resources, information about Council fleet movements. Flowing Dawn's water form rippled with determination. The humans do not ask us to fight their war, they only ask for the chance to fight it themselves. Similar conversations happened across the galaxy. The Thornwood Collective, a species of sentient plants who communicated through chemical signals, had long admired human art and literature. They sent encoded messages to Earth, offering botanical compounds that could be used as medicine for the wounded, the hollow. The ancient machine intelligences who had observed the rise and fall of countless civilizations calculated new probabilities. The original models had given humanity a 0.3% chance of surviving the Council's attack. After the Battle of the Belt, they revised that number to 12%, still low but possible even among the Sinandari, the merchant species whose ships had died in the Belt. There were those who began to reconsider. War was expensive, dead ships couldn't carry cargo, and the humans had proven they were willing to fight forever rather than accept defeat. On the Council home world, the political divisions became impossible to ignore. Supreme Arbiter Kororos then stood before the full assembly of the Galactic Council. 300 representatives from 12 species filled the ancient chamber, their voices rising in argument and accusation. We should have destroyed them immediately, shouted Admiral Kororo's Vex, leading the war faction. Every day we delay gives them time to prepare more defenses, bring the reserve. Fleets burn every human world. End this quickly, and how many ships will that cost? Demanded Cinindericus. Another 40, another 100. The humans have shown they will fight to the last being. Total war of extermination could take years and cost us thousands of vessels. The Mirrans support immediate negotiations, announced the Mir. Ambassador, her water form carefully. Neutral, the humans have demonstrated their strength. Continued aggression serves no purpose. The Thornwood collective agrees. We see no benefit in prolonged conflict. Kororos then listened to the arguments and felt the weight of 10,000 years pressing down on him. The Valkyrie had built this council. Through strength and will, they had maintained it through the certainty that no species could challenge their dominance. The humans had shattered that certainty with a single battle. We would send another fleet. Kororos then announced. The chamber went silent. 200 fresh ships fully equipped for extended combat. But first, we will offer the humans one final chance to negotiate. If they refuse, we destroy them. If they accept, we find terms that preserve our honor while ending this wasteful conflict. It was a compromise. No one was happy, but the council had been built on compromise, and it would continue a little longer on Earth. Elan Vasquez received the news of the council's offer with cautious hope. She had been promoted to fleet admiral after the battle, a rank that had never existed before. Her face was on every screen, her name on every tongue. To humanity, she was a hero. To Alelena herself, she was just a woman who had gotten lucky and gotten thousands of people killed in the process. That she met with the United Earth Defense Council in the same underground bunker where she had first presented her plan. The politicians were different now. The voices calling for surrender had grown quiet. The voices calling for victory were louder, maybe too loud. They want to negotiate, said Premier Chen, the civilian leader of Earth's government. After everything they've done, they wanted to talk. I say we tell them to go to hell. With respect, Premier Alelena said carefully. That would be a mistake. You defeated them. You can do it again. I got lucky. We got lucky. Next battle will be harder. They'll have more ships, better tactics, commanders who have learned from their mistakes. We might win again. We might not. She pulled up projections on the main display. Casualty estimate, resource consumption, the cold mathematics of prolonged war. If we keep fighting, we will eventually lose, not because humans aren't brave enough or smart enough, because they have 1,000 worlds and we have 12, because they have 1,000,000 years of accumulated wealth, and we're still paying off the cost of our first colony ships. This war only ends one way, unless we find a negotiated solution. What do you suggest? Asked Admiral Morrison. The older woman had aged years in the past weeks, carrying the burden of command while Alelena fought in the belt. We negotiate from strength. We show them that peace is possible, but defeat is not. We make them believe that winning will cost more than compromising. Alelena stood and walked to the viewport. Outside, she could see the lights of cities, the movements of ships, the bustling activity of a species that refused to accept extinction. I didn't start this fight to win a war. I started it to save humanity. If we can do that through diplomacy instead of blood, we should try. The negotiations began 3 days Later, a neutral station in deep space, heavily guarded by ships from both sides. Elelina represented humanity, flanked by diplomats and legal experts. Kororos then represented the Council, surrounded by ambassadors from the 12 member species. They talked for days. They argued, they made offers and counter-offers. The humans demanded full sovereignty over their current territory. The Council demanded restrictions on human military expansion. Both sides pushed in, retreated and pushed again, through it all. Elelina watched Kororo's van. The ancient Velry was different from what she had expected. In their first conversation, he had been arrogant and dismissive. Now he was cautious, thoughtful, even respectful. The battle of the belt had changed something in him. On the 5th day of negotiations, during a private moment when their delegations had stepped out, Kororos then asked her a question. Why did you fight? Elena looked at him, surprised by the genuine curiosity in his voice. Because surrender would have destroyed us as surely as your weapons, she said. Not our bodies, our spirit, everything that makes humans what we are. Other species have surrendered. They survived. Did they? Or did they just continue existing while everything that made them unique died away? Kororos then was silent. For a long moment, his burning eyes seemed to dim slightly, touched by something that might have been memory or regret. 10,000 years ago we were like you, he said quietly. The Velori, we fought against empires that thought they could crush us. We survived when survival was impossible. And then he paused, and then we became the empire. We became the thing we fought against. Maybe it's not too late to become something else. Elena said she didn't know if she believed that. She wasn't sure she trusted this ancient being who had threatened to exterminate her species, but she knew that peace required both sides to believe the other could change. Perhaps, Kororos then said, perhaps the negotiations continued, and somewhere in the process something shifted. The hostility remained, but it was tempered by a growing mutual respect. Elena saw past the alien face to the being underneath, one who had lived long enough to question his own certainties. Kororos then saw past the primitive species to the spark of something genuinely new, a people who might change the galaxy simply by existing in it. Meanwhile, the secret messages kept flowing. The Mirren sent intelligence about council positions. The Thornwood sent medicines that saved hundreds of wounded human soldiers. The Hollow sent something even more valuable, analysis of council politics, predictions of which species would support humanity and which would oppose it. The galaxy was watching, and slowly, carefully, it was beginning to choose sides on the council home world. Admiral Kororo Vex gathered his supporters in the shadows. The negotiations were a betrayal, he told them. The Velry were being humiliated by these insects, these creatures who had barely learned to walk upright on the cosmic scale. Something had to be done. He began planning his own response to the human problem, one that didn't require the Supreme Arbiter's app of Admiral Kororos Vex moved against the negotiations. On the 7th day, his plan was elegant in its simplicity. 200 ships would jump to Earth while the human fleet was occupied, protecting the diplomatic station. They would destroy the human home world and the species and prove once and for all that the Council could not be challenged. He did not tell Kororos Dan. He did not consult the Council representatives. He acted alone. convinced that history would vindicate him once the humans were gone. The first warning came from the Mirren, flowing. Dawn had been monitoring Council communications for weeks when she detected the unauthorized fleet movement. She immediately sent a message to the human delegation at the neutral station. The clear's throat message was simple: 200 ships heading for Earth. Arrival in 6 hours. Elelina read the message and felt her blood turn cold. 6 hours. Her fleet was scattered, damaged from the previous battle, nowhere near Earth. Even if she ordered them to return immediately, they would arrive too late. She had promised to save humanity. Now, because she had chosen diplomacy over vigilance, Earth was going to burn. Kororos then saw the change in her face. What has happened? Your Admiral Kororos Vex has decided to end the negotiations his own way. Alina's voice was flat. Controlled. 200 ships are heading for Earth. They'll arrive before I can stop them. For a moment Koroso then was silent, then his expression changed. The careful diplomat disappeared. Something older appeared in its place, something that remembered what it meant to be Valkyrie before the Valkyrie became conquerors. That fool, he said softly. That arrogant, honorless fool. He turned to his delegation. Contact the Eternal Judgment. Order our escort fleet to intercept Kororos Vex immediately. This attack is unauthorized. Anyone who participates is a traitor to the Council. The Valkyrie ambassador looked shocked. Supreme Arbiter, you can't order our ships to fire on our own. I can and I will. The Council does not break its word. We came here to negotiate. Any attack during negotiations is a violation of the most sacred laws we have. His burning eyes swept across the chamber, daring anyone to challenge him. The humans fought us fairly. They defeated our fleet in open battle. They have earned the right to be treated as equals, not exterminated like pests by a rogue admiral who cares more about pride than honor. If Kororos Vex destroys Earth while I stand here making peace, everything the Council has stood for becomes a lie. He turned back to Alina. I cannot promise my ships will reach your world in time, but they will try, and if they fail, I give you my word that Kororos Vex will be punished for his treachery. Alina looked at this ancient being who had threatened her species with extinction just days ago. She saw something she had not expected. Shame, real genuine shame at what his own people were attempting to do. I believe you, she said, but I'm not waiting here to find out. If Earth dies, I'm going to be there. She ran from the chamber, calling orders to her flagship, the Defiance, still damaged from the previous battle, powered up its engines and jumped toward Earth. The next hours were the longest of Alina's life. The Defiance arrived at Earth with 2 hours to spare. Alina immediately began organizing the planetary defense, such as it was orbital stations, ground-based weapons, civilian ships that had been converted for military use, everything humanity had left. It wasn't enough. 200 ships against the scattered remnants of the human fleet. The mathematics were brutal and simple. All ships. This is Admiral Vasquez. Alina's voice was broadcast to every human vessel in the system. An enemy fleet is inbound. We cannot defeat them in open battle, but we can make them pay for every inch of space. She looked out at Earth, blue and green and beautiful, home to 8 billion people who were counting on her. Today we defend our home, not with any hope of victory, but with the certainty that we will not go. Quietly, whatever happens in the next hours, let it be said that humanity faced extinction standing up. The Council fleet dropped out of hyperspace. Like a metal avalanche, 200 ships spread across the sky, their weapons charging, their commanders eager for the glory of destroying the human home world. Admiral Kororos Vex stood on his flagships bridge and smiled. This would be his legacy, the admiral who ended the human threat forever. All ships target major population centers, fire at will. The Council fleet opened fire, beams of energy lanced toward Earth, toward the cities and farms and communities that represented everything humanity had built. And then something unexpected happened. Ships appeared between the Council fleet and Earth, not human ships, Council ships, the escort fleet from the neutral station commanded by officers loyal to Koraro Dan, 50 vessels throwing themselves into the path of the attack. What is this? Kororo Vex screamed. Who ordered this? The Supreme Arbiter, replied the escort fleet commander. You are in violation of Council law. Stand down or be destroyed. For a moment chaos reigned. Council ships faced Council ships, commanders who had served together for centuries now aimed weapons at each other. The carefully maintained order of the galactic government cracked and splintered, and in that moment of confusion, Alina attacked. The human fleet, such as it was, came screaming out of Earth orbit, damaged frigates and converted transports and anything else that could fly. They hit the Council fleet from behind while the escort ships held the front. Kororos Vex's force was larger than both fleets combined, but they were fighting on two fronts, unsure who was friend and who was enemy. Ships collided in the confusion. Friendly fire destroyed vessels that had never even engaged the humans. The precise coordinated assault Kororos Vex had planned dissolved into chaos. Alina led the Defiance into the heart of the enemy formation. She wasn't trying to win, she was trying to buy time. Every minute the Council fleet spent fighting her was a minute they weren't bombarding Earth. The battle lasted for hours. When it was over, Kororos Vex's flagship was destroyed. His fleet scattered or surrendered. The escort ships loyal to Kororos Van had taken terrible losses, and the human fleet had been reduced to fragments, but Earth survived. Alina sat in the wreckage of her bridge and looked at the damage reports. 17 major cities had been hit before the attack was stopped. Millions were dead. The orbital infrastructure was destroyed. It would take decades to rebuild, but 8 billion people were still alive. Human civilization would continue. Her communications officer, bleeding from a head wound but still at his station, looked up. Admiral incoming. Transmission from the neutral station. Koros's face appeared on the screen. He looked older than he had just days ago. The weight of what his own people had done pressed down on him visibly. Admiral Vasquez, I have arrested the surviving officers involved in this attack. They will be tried under Council law. The penalties will be severe. That doesn't bring back my dead, Alina said. Her voice was hollow. No, it does not. Nothing can. Koros then paused, but perhaps something good can come from this tragedy. The Council has been watching. They have seen one of our own admirals break our most sacred laws. They have seen humans defend their home against impossible odds, and they have seen what kind of people you truly are. He leaned forward. I am prepared to offer new terms. full membership in the Galactic Council, equal voting rights, recognition of all human territory, and something more. His eyes burned with new intensity. And alliance. The Council has grown old and corrupt. Species like the Mirren and the Thornwood have been marginalized for too long. Humans have shown us that things can change, perhaps. Together, we can build something better than what we have now. Alina was silent. For a long moment, she thought about the dead, the cities burning below her, the years of reconstruction ahead. She thought about her grandmother who had survived a war and built a better world. From the ashes, I'll need to consult with my government, she said finally. But I think we can find terms that work for everyone. Carose then nodded. Take whatever time you need. The Council will wait. The transmission ended. Alina looked out at Earth, scarred but surviving. Behind her, through the viewport, she could see the wreckage of two fleets, human and Council alike, drifting together in the void. They had not won, not really. There would be years of difficult negotiations ahead, years of rebuilding, years of learning to trust former enemies. But they had survived, and more than that, they had proven something important, not just to the galaxy but to themselves. Humans were not just survivors. They were not just warriors. They were something new, something the galaxy had never seen before. A species that could fight with terrible ferocity, and then when the fighting was done, extend a hand. Peace that was humanity's true strength. Not their weapons or their tactics or their willingness to sacrifice. It was their ability to imagine a better future and fight for it even when everything seemed hopeless. Alina stood slowly, her damaged ship groaning around her. Her crew, exhausted but alive, set a course for Earth. She said, "We have a lot of work to do." The Defiance turned toward home, toward the blue planet that had produced a species mad enough to challenge an empire and wise enough to know when victory meant something more than winning battles. The war was over. The real work was just beginning. And humanity, as always, was ready to face whatever came next.